Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Paranga Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Anarpita Charin Chirat Karunaya Vatirna Kalau Samarpaitum unnato jvalarasang svabhakti shriyam Harih purata sundara dyutikadamba sandipitaha Sada hridaya kandare sfuratuva sachinandanaha Anandalila maya vigrahaya Hemabadivya Chabisundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya-candrāmrita Namo Namaste Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Sri Radhe. Let's do some Sanskrit. I watched my tape from yesterday. I was thinking that was really dreadful. I did it at last minute, so I was completely off the cuff. But at least it had a good influence on me, because I felt much exalted by the memory of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and by the glories of Sri Chaitanya, and by just what a glorious the Caitanya-candrāmrita was actually the first. You know, we talk about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's Chaitanya Shatakam. But this Chaitanya Shatakam, with the two famous verses that are quoted throughout, I mean, these verses by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you know, that Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yogam, these verses, the two verses that are found in Chaitanya Charitamrita, they're actually found even earlier than that. They're found in, I think the first place that they're found is, in the Chaitanya Charita Mahakabya by Kavi Karnapur. But right now there's an extant 100-verse stotra that's attributed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, but it doesn't contain those two verses, which is very strange. So I have my doubts that that is really written by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. But Prabodhananda Saraswati's Chaitanya-candrāmrita, even though it's completely disappeared, by the time of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Prabodhananda Saraswati's Chaitanya-candrāmrita is no longer found in the, it's not mentioned. But it was the very first Sanskrit stotra of high quality, let's say, about Chaitanya that was during Chaitanya, it was written during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lifetime. Maybe some of it, parts of it were written afterwards, but the bulk of the Chaitanya Candrāmrita was written by Prabodhananda Saraswati during Mahaprabhu's lifetime. And so in the very, very first, Vaishnava Vandana, these Vaishnava Vandanas, like Vaishnava Vandana was written by Devaki Nandan. There's a famous poem, I don't know if you've seen that. It's not, this Vaishnava Vandana is very common in outside the Gaudiya Math. It's not chanted in the Gaudiya Math at all, but outside the Gaudiya Math, it's quite very well known. And some parts of it, like when we sing this, Jai Jai Nityananda Dvaita Gauranga, a lot of that follows Devaki Nanda's Vaishnava Vandana. So in that Vaishnava Vandana, Prabodhananda Saraswati is named. And then there's another Sanskrit Vaishnava Vandana that's attributed to Jiva Goswami, where Prabodhananda Saraswati's name is mentioned. And there he's called Chaitanya Lila Saraswati, that he's the Saraswati of Chaitanya Lila. So even before Vrindavan Das Thakur was given the name of the Chaitanya Lila's Vyasa, and Chaitanya's Lila had a Saraswati, and that was Prabodhananda Saraswati. So you would think that Prabodhananda Saraswati, that this person would be of some importance to the history of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. That's why we believe that Prabodhananda Saraswati was Prakashananda, because the story of Prakashananda. And if you look, even if you look in the 7th chapter, yesterday we chanted that verse, Patra, Vichara, Vichara nam nakurute. This verse, it has its exact replica in Bengali in the 7th chapter of the Adi Lila, which is exactly where Kaviraj Goswami tells the story of Prakashananda Saraswati. So these ideas of Prakashananda or Prabodhananda are found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but under the surface, because Prabodhananda Saraswati had lost favor with the Vaishnavas of the Gaudiya sect. And that's an unfortunate situation. And it's only recently that he's been rehabilitated, and that since the 19th century, when the Gaudiya version of the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi was revived and spread throughout Bengal, that Prabodhananda Saraswati made a comeback. Before that, he sort of lost his stature, and even the Caitanya-candrāmrita was not held in such great favor as before. But if you look at it, and you look at the Caitanya-candrāmrita, this is was an influential work in the early part of the Gaudiya Sampradaya.
I'm sorry, but why did he lose this stature?
Because he became a supporter of Hithari Vangsha. So Hithari Vangsha is the founder of the Radha Ballava sect. So Radha Ballavis in Vrindavan. So now the Radha Ballavis will not, they don't have. The Radha Ballavis say that there are 4 Prabodhananda Saraswatis. That's how problematic Prabodhananda Saraswati is. But there's a Prabodhananda Saraswati who's talked about in the tradition of the Radha Ballava sect. But everybody in Vrindavan accepts Vrindavan and Mahimamrita, including the Radha Ballavis. But the Radha Ballavis can't accept the Vrindavan Mahimamrita completely, because there's 5 verses to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in there. And there's a verse that the Gaudiya, that some people, that there's a verse I think 2 verses in the Chaitanya, in the Vrindavan Mahimamrita, that the Radha Ballavis say is about Harivangsha, but he's not mentioned by name. And then Prabodhananda wrote an ashtakam to hit Harivangsha, which is on, if you go to Seva Kunj, right? You go to Seva Kunj,
yes.
And if you look on the wall, they have all the verses of the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi in marble plaques on the wall. But before you get into before you do the 270 verses of the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, there are 8 verses by Prabodhananda to Harivangsha are there. And it's quite interesting because the Chaitanya-candrāmrita and Hit Harivangsha's Ashtakam, there's quite a bit of difference in terms of the intensity, But the thing was that Prabodhananda Saraswati supported Harivangsha because he supported over Gopal Bhatta, and Gopal Bhatta is supposedly the disciple of Prabodhananda.
And who was Prakashananda?
This you have to, I'm not going to tell you the whole story of Prakāśananda. You have to go read Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's in the, you read it, it's in the 27th chapter of the Adi Lila. But it's an important story because it comes out of sequence, right? The Prabodhananda Saraswati, and another interesting thing about Prabodhananda Saraswati is Prakāśananda Saraswati. He's mentioned twice in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So Chaitanya Bhagavat is incomplete. This is the interesting thing about Chaitanya Bhagavat. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami says that the Chaitanya Bhagavat, that Vrindavan Das Thakur got absorbed in Nityananda Lila, and so he was unable to complete the Chaitanya Bhagavat. But he actually doesn't complete the Nityananda Lila either. That's why later on there's another book called Nityananda Vaṅśha-Vistāra, but even that doesn't tell us everything about it. So Nityananda was the last part of his life was a bit hard to explain. And so I think that Vrindavan Das Thakur, maybe he died before he could finish it or whatever, but nobody ever finished the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Nobody told the rest of the story of Nityananda either. But in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, when you're writing a book, you have to say what's going, you give some premonition of what's going to happen later on. So Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's twice that in Mahaprabhu, when he's in Jagannath Puri, or when he's in, I guess it's in the Antya Lila, that he talks about Prakāśananda Saraswati. Kanda, he's chopping my body into bits. That's what he says, because he's and he talks about Mayavadis and it's a, Beta, he calls him Beta. He calls him, that rascal, that child, Prakāśananda. So he was preparing to tell the story of Prakāśananda Saraswati, that, the conversion of Prakāśananda, he was going to tell that, but he didn't tell it. So, but it's an important story because, this is a big deal to have someone like Prakāśananda convert. But Prakāśananda converted, and then what happened to him? Right? There's nothing mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita about what happened to Prakāśananda afterwards. So he converted, but it's kind of if someone converts and then changes again, right? You became there's sometimes these stories happen. Someone becomes like Bob Dylan, right? Bob Dylan supposedly became a Christian convert. Also the Vaishnavas, Krishna, he came to the temple a couple of times, so the devotees, and there's one song that Bob Dylan wrote that they think was influenced by Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. You got to serve somebody like that, but he never became a real devotee. Even someone like George Harrison, he was the devotees make such a big deal out of him being a devotee, but he was kind of a fringy, if anything. So, but at least he supported the devotees, which is a good thing. But I mean to say that if someone repudiates so Prakāśananda became a big convert, important convert, super important story, just like Sarvabhauma was converted, and that was a huge deal. And so in the same way, Prakāśananda, and there's some similarity between Sarvabhauma and Prakāśananda. Even there's some relationship, the two knew each other. So, but anyway, Prakāśananda became a big convert, and then suddenly then something happened that you don't stop talking about him, right? Because he was a convert to Chaitanya, and then suddenly he became, became friendly with this disciple of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who was an apostate, right? The Radha Ballavas. So what do you think about Radha Ballavas? The Radha Ballavas, what's happened in the Gaudiya Vaishnava, the way that Gaudiya Vaishnavism developed, and which is exactly what ISKCON is still trying to prevent happening, right? The Radha Ballavis, they said they took this, they were actually influenced by Prabodhananda. It's actually if anything, Prabodhananda Saraswati is the real founder of the Radha Ballavi Sampradayas, but the Radha Ballavis will never say this. The Hit Harivansha was a disciple of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. They'll never admit this either. But I say that that Hit Harivansha, because he says in his he claims to be the direct disciple of Radha. And the stories they tell, he recited the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi when he was 5 years old. So I think this is kind of in-the-face lying, right? That when you have such in-the-face untruths being told, you know, these legends that he wrote it when he was 5 years old. Perhaps he was 5 years old when it was written. But he didn't write it at 5 years old. And when you see the comparison, you know, Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi with even the Chaitanya-candrāmrita, then you can see that there's a great deal of linguistic similarity. But that's why I say that Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, you know, Harivansha wrote a few songs, and he was obviously handsome and personable and charismatic and a good singer and musician, and so he attracted people to him as well. But the direction of the Radha Rasa, the direction of the Radha Vallabha Sampradaya, all comes from Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi. Their philosophy is the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi for the Harivansha is the Bhagavatam. It's equal. It's their scripture. So and it contains verses that are very clearly, Anantadas does his commentary on the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, but there's a couple of verses there that he has to give an alternative interpretation to them, in order to make them fit Gaudiya Siddhanta and not to fit the Radha Vallabha Siddhanta. So in ISKCON now they say you can't chant Radha Nam, right? If you look at Premananda Das Ji, who is Premananda Sharan, who is the leading exponent of Radha Vallabha Sampradaya at the present moment, they chant Radha 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 Radha. That's Radhe Radhe Radha 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 Radha. They're Ekantika Radha Bhaktas. So that's what the Gaudiyas say. That's not accepted by Jiva Goswami. So Jiva Goswami argues against that, and Babaji also follows that too. That it's Krishna with Radha. It's not Radha independent of Krishna. You can't worship Radha without Krishna. And I think in reality, the Radha Vallabhis don't do it like that either. But they're Radha, you know. So the philosophy of the Radha Vallabha Sampradayas is that Radha is the mantra, Radha is the guru, Radha is everything, everything, everything. We only know Radha, Radha, Tavaivasmi, Najivami Tvayavina. This kind of singular devotion to Radha. And you can see they've had their influence, because everybody in Vrindavan goes Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, right? It's not, you know, if someone says Jai Shri Krishna, they're going, oh, where are you from? Mathura or something? Okay, let's do some. But anyway.
Since we're already on so far off the topic, maybe you can explain a little bit about this court case. So what I understood is that the court case is about the authorship of the Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, and the Radha Vallabha Sampradaya this is the only book they have, otherwise they have nothing else to give them any foundation. So they claim that it was written by Hit Harivansha, and the Gaudiyas claim it was written by Prabodhananda Saraswati. Is that the issue?
Yeah, so the court case, they won the court case.
Oh, they won it?
Yeah, I mean,
really?
I don't know. Well, I mean, they've won court cases in the past, so there are precedents. This
because Babaji is involved in that
court case. This was first done in the 19th century. They had this.
Oh, yeah.
So it's been legislated several times now. So they have the precedent. So you know, they say that the Gaudiyas can't claim that it's theirs. You know, but it's these kinds of things. You can't really legislate something like that. Can you legislate something like that? You know, that our version of history is the legal version of history, and you can't debate that. You know, obviously, but of course, in India, you know, India is such a sensitive country where religion is concerned because of the Islamic problem. right? Like even now, this film came out about the Kashmir Files, and in that Kashmir Files film, I mean, it was, like it's a film, it's a story. It's like telling the story of some people who, of the suffering of the Hindus in Kashmir who were evicted, and they had to, it was either convert, leave, or be killed. That was the motto of the Muslims who were kicking them out. You either convert, or you get out, or you get killed. One of the choose your option, A, B, or C. So most of them got out. But I mean, in that film, apparently they cannot mention the word Islam once. Can you imagine that? They're writing a film, the film is about that, but according to Indian law, in order not to offend the sensibilities of the Muslims, you can't say that it was the Muslims' fault. You can't say that it was because of Islam that they did that. So India is very sensitive about these kinds of historical claims. And actually, Indian history is full of obfuscation. It's actually in telling the Indian history is a great problem, because of the fact that nobody says the truth. Everybody tells their own lies, and then these lies are accepted as because of this sampradaya and parampara. If the guru says it, you have to accept it as true. And so then it becomes, and if the guru says it's true, then nobody can question it. And if somebody outside your group questions it, then you could create enmity with that person. So in terms of this story of Prabodhananda Saraswati is historically has been papered over. And the Gaudiya Vaishnavas now want to rehabilitate Prabodhananda Saraswati, but they don't want to face the fact that this is how did Harivansha end up being the author of the Radhabrasa Sudhanidhi? How did that happen? He just, Prabodhananda Saraswati, what did Prabodhananda Saraswati? He wasn't there to say, no, I wrote it, right? How did that happen? And so you see that there's a text. The Radha Ballavis have their own tradition, and they had quite a few devotees. And some of these devotees, but you can see in the early Gaudiya history, or in the early Radha Ballavi history, that there were Gaudiyas who were involved. One of them's names is called Bhagavad Rasika, Bhagavad Mudita. So Bhagavanta Mudita he was not a Bengali, he was in Hindustani, I don't know where exactly he's from, but he wrote in Braja Bhasha. And he wrote the first, I don't know if it was the first one, but he wrote a biography of the leading disciples of Harivansha, and it's called Ananya Rasika Mal. So the mal means here means mala, right? Mal means garland. So it's Ananya Rasika Mala. So the garland of exclusive devotees. And Prabodhananda is written about there. Prabodhananda has a big story about him in there. And it doesn't mention there at all that Prabodhananda is a disciple of, is a follower of Chaitanya. It says that he came, but it does say that he was from a sannyasi from Kashi. It does say that he was a sannyasi from Benares. And he came and he was influenced by, according to this story, he came to Vrindavan, met Harivansha and became influenced by Harivansha. And after that, he wrote the Vrindavana-Mahimamrita. And Ananya and Bhagavanta Mudita also did a translation of the last Shataka. So the Vrindavana-Mahimamrita has 17 Shatakas, right? The Shataka means 100 verses. So there are 17 of them, and some of them are less than that. I think some are 99 and some are 104, 105, like that. But this is about 1,700 verses altogether in the Vrindavan Mahimamrita. But the last Shataka contains the most verses, about 140 or 120 something verses, I think 127 verses, I think, in the last Shataka. So that last Shataka it begins with 3 verses to Chaitanya, and it has another verse to Chaitanya later on, and it also has one verse that could be seen as a description of Harivansha. But my feeling is that probably that first, that he wrote this one first, and then he wrote the other ones later, because of that Mangalacharan to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So later on, he became less, but the very first one of this other 17, that also has a verse to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he didn't give up Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entirely. But the point is that what happened in Vrindavan, if you look in Chaitanya Bhagavat and so on, it's all, Mahaprabhu is, he is teaching the Bhagavata Purana, right? When he talks about Gadadhar teaching the Bhagavatam in Puri, then he hears Prahlad's story, Dhruva's story. Those are the things he wants to hear. So there's an evolution of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that takes place under the influence of Rupa and Sanatana in Vrindavan. And that influence is gradually this Radha, the status of Radha becomes greater. And the Raghunath and Swarup Damodar, they reveal more and more that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Radha mood. And so this becomes gradually takes the ascendancy. And so Radha, the importance of Radha becomes greater and greater in Vrindavan. So what happens is that, people like Prabodhananda Saraswati and Hit Harivansha, they say, well, if this is the end of the story, what are we wasting our time with all this other stuff for? What do I need to know? About Brahma, and let's give that up. Just like I just was looking now. Look at this verse. I'm sorry to do this today, but I mean, let's pretend that we're still having Chaitanya. Here, where is it now? I was just looking at going through these. No, what is it? Is it 2? No. Let me see, move on. I mean, if you read this, really, Caitanya-candrāmrita is here, this one here. All right, am I gonna,
can you share?
Yes, I'm sharing the screen. Yes, one moment, please. You see, I didn't do it, but I was looking at it today. Yeah, I was looking after the class yesterday. I ended up getting into and start editing. I do my editing business here, so I was going and reviewing the edit here. There's a lot of mistakes as usual. Here, mādyantaḥ paripīya yasya caraṇāmbhoja-sravat-projjvala premānanda-mayāmṛtādbhuta-rasān sarve suparveḍitāḥ brahmādīṁś hasanti nātibahumanyante mahā-vaiṣṇavān dhik kurvanti brahma-yoga-viduṣas tam gauram stumaḥ. That tam gauram stumaḥ. There's stumaḥ again, right? We worship that Gaura. So here he has 3. Brahmādīṁś hasanti. They laugh at Brahma and the other gods, just like in the other famous verse from the Chaitanya-candrāmrita that says that Vidhi Mahendradish Chakitayate, that Vidhi and Mahendra, Brahma and Shiva, they're like worms. He tells they're like worms. And here he says they laugh at Brahma and the others. And then nātibahumanyante mahā-vaiṣṇavān, they don't think that the other great Vaishnavas are that great. Right here, this is this verse here, this word, ati bahu manyante. So manyante, you recognize that from man. So they don't think highly or very highly. They don't think very highly of the other great Vaishnavas. dhik kurvanti cha brahma-yoga-viduṣas. And they actually look down. They dhik kurvanti. So dhik, I think we did that word in the manual, right? That dhik meaning looking, that you're not cursing really, but like, well, you could say damn. I sometimes say that, they anyhow, they look down on, they don't, it's not, they don't, here they laugh at Brahma and etc. And they don't think very highly of the great Vaishnavas, but they really look down on the people who are following who are Brahmavadis and who are yogis, Kaivalya yoga. So what are they? They sarve suparveḍitāḥ. They are worshipped by the suparva. Suparva means a god, right? I don't know if you know that word. Suparva means the devas. And irita means worship. So they're all worshipped by the gods. Who are these people? Mādyantaḥ, paripīya, yasya, caraṇāmbhoja-sravat-projjvala, premānanda-mayāmṛtādbhuta-rasān. So here the paripīya, there you get the liap gerund, right? We have the liap gerunds. So here paripīya, piya is the, pa root. It comes from pa root, and that's e is coming in here. Pitwa, pibati, to drink. So paripīya, having completely drunk the rasa, the juice, the amazing. I told you even yesterday's class, I said adbhuta, right? The amazing. This is Prabodhananda Saraswati's one of the signs or signals of Prabodhananda Saraswati's language. This is actually very typical of Prabodhananda, this whole compound word, a big long compound like this, right? caraṇāmbhoja-sravat-projjvala, premānanda-mayāmṛta, Adbhuta-rasān. So they're drinking the rasas, the amazing rasa of the nectar that is full of the ecstatic love that is ujjvala rasa, right? So ujjvala rasa, so madhura rasa that flows from Chaitanya's lotus feet. Yasya caraṇāmbhoja-sravat-projjvala, premānanda-mayāmṛtādbhuta-rasān sarve. So these people who are mādyantaḥ, these people who are intoxicated after drinking this rasa, they are worshipped by all the gods. But then what is their behavior? That they have this, that they're acting like this. They're not, so in the commentary there, Anandi says, after he says, well, they've done all this, they're doing all, they're look here, look at this. He brahmādayas Chaitanya padāravindamakarandam rasam nanu bhavanti. They're laughing at Brahma. Look, all these gods like Brahma, they don't understand, they haven't experienced the rasa that comes from Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. Makaranda is another word for the juice. So here rasa means taste. So they haven't experienced the taste of the juice that flows from Chaitanya's lotus feet. And so that's how they become hasyaspada. They become the objects of ridicule. And then the other ones, nātibahumanyante, mahā-vaiṣṇavān. So they don't think very highly of oops, look there, another mistake. So mahā-vaiṣṇavān, so yadyapi bhagavadeka nishtaya bhajna-shīlatvena mahanto vaishnavaha tatapi Chaitanya-candrāmrita kripa-makarandanandānubhavitvat nātibahumanyante iti arthaha. So here, ananubhavitvat, because they haven't experienced the ecstasy of the mercy, this juice of this sap, the sap that comes out of a tree, that's makaranda. So that the kripa makaranda of Chaitanya Charana-Ravinda, they haven't experienced that. So even though they're great Vaishnavas, Bhagavad Eka Nishtaya, they're single-mindedly devoted to Bhagavan, and they are bhajana shila. They are engaged in bhajan. So they're great Vaishnavas. But because they don't have the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, therefore we don't think very highly of them. In other words, there might be great Ramanandis, but there's something missing there that Chaitanya comes through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So so then he goes and dhik kurvanti, dhik kurvanti. So this is great. Okay, I've already gone too far, so I'm going to just go on here. Tatraha brahma-yoga-viduṣas brahmani ghani-bhuta para-brahmanonga chatarupe nirakare yogo jivatmano yojanam tam ye vidanti tan. Okay, so brahmani, so this is brahma. Vidusha here is an accusative case, plural. This is brahma-yoga-viduṣas. This was another one. Vidwan. Vidwan is, well, we'll talk about that. I think, where does it come up? It'll come up in the 8th chapter, I think, when we talk about perfect participles. Anyway, Brahmani, Gani Bhuta Para-brahmano Anga Chata Rupe Nirakare. So the Brahma means Nirakara Brahma. The one that is the Chata, Anga Chata Rupe. The Chata means the effulgence. Right, the Anga Chata, the bodily effulgence of Brahma, which is the Brahma, the Gani Bhuta Para Brahma. So the Para Brahma, that means the personal God, right? Krishna. So Gani Bhuta Para Brahmano. So he's Gani Bhuta, means he's the solid, he's the compressed. I think Babaji, what does Babaji use? I forget the word. Babaji uses a different word. But anyway, I always say that I like the idea of compressed, the condensed, really, condensed. So Gani Bhuta, condensed Brahma, the condensed highest form of Brahma. So from his body comes the Chata, the effulgence. So that's the Nirakara Brahma. That's one. And then Yogo, Jivatmano yojanam. So when the Jivatma is connected to this Brahma, that's Brahma Yoga. So tam ye vidanti. So those who know that Brahma Yoga, they dhik kurvanti. They look down on them. Let's say they speak ill of them. Really, it says they don't speak. They kind of condemn them. So yataha te bhagavad bhajana samanya sukhanubhavino, because they are only experiencing the general happiness, the samanya sukha. They're not experiencing the vishesha sukha that the Vaishnavas who follow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So even though they're engaged in Bhagavad Bhajan, Bhagavad Bhajana Samanya Sukhanubhavino Anubhavino. They are experiencing the happiness, the general happiness of Bhagavad Bhajana. Ataha Chaitanya Prema Mattanam Dhikkara Vishaya iti arthaha. Therefore, they are the Dhikkara Vishaya. They are the objects of this Dhikkara. Dhikkara. Looking for a word that will, I'm not going to open the dictionary. I'll open the dictionary. Let's open the dictionary, because I'm, sometimes I just don't get the right word right away. And if I look at Monia Williams, I usually find what I'm looking for. Sanskrit. Come on. Here we go. I'll change the screen. Yeah. Okay, so dhik. Let's just put dhik. Dhik. So here, shame on you, right? What a pity. Shame. Like that kind of thing. Dhikkara. Let's see if dhikkara is here. Reproach, contempt, scoffing. Oh, look at that. He puts big Bhagavad Purana for that. Interesting. Because this word comes up when the yagya, the brahmanas whose wives got Krishna's mercy, and they didn't, because they were too busy with their sacrifice to give anything to the cowherd boys. So at the end of that story, the Brahmins do dhikkara of themselves. They say, well, dhik naha, dhik asman.
We were just reading that in Bhakti Sandarbha. It's really amazing. Just the other day, exactly this verse.
Yeah, so there, yeah, so that's, well, it's interesting too, because I'm just doing something like that in the Gona Rasas. And actually that's interesting because it comes up right here. Look at this. Let's look at this. There's two verses here that he put. So look at this. Tamye vidanti tan. So yataha te bhagavad bhajana samanya sukhanu bhavino atas chaitanya premānanda-mayāmṛtādbhuta-rasān dhik kara vishaya. So scorn, I think, is the best word here. They are the objects of scorn. Ata eva karuna rase narada shokokti. So this is the karuna rasa. So there's this karuna rasa comes in here. Now this is karuna rasa. So I haven't done this yet in Priti Sandarbha, but I'm looking at this at the 4th chapter of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu here. So let me just do Sahadeva. This Hangsadutta one, I can do that too, but but let's do Sahadeva here. So this is Sahadev's ukti from the discussion of Karuna Rasa. So what is this? So the Ata Eva Karuna Rasa. So this Dikkara, they may be scorning them or scoffing at them, but actually what he says here, so therefore they are the objects of Karuna Rasa. So look at this. I hadn't really read this verse before, so I was just enjoying this verse today. So Mata, Madri, Gata, Kutaha, Tvam Adhuna. Right? So here, this is Ha Kwasi Pando Pitaha. So here, so Mata and Pitaha, those are both vocatives, right? So here you've got a case of this Visarga turning into R. Mata, oh mother, Madri. So that's the name of this is Sahadev speaking, right? So Sahadev is saying Madri, his mother. Kutaha Gata, where have you gone? So there you see a past participle being used in the in an active way, right? Gata, where have you gone? So Gata here is agreeing with Madri, feminine. So Tvam Kutaha Gata, where have you gone? Adhuna, today, where have you gone today? Ha Kwasi Pando Pitaha, oh Pandu, also vocative. Pitaha, vocative. Ha Kwasi, where are you? Sandrananda Sudabdiresha Yuvayor Nabhut Drisham Gocharaha. Aha. So here, Drisham Gocharaha. So this is, we had this Nayana Saranim. This is another way of saying it didn't become, Gocharaha means Gochara. We saw this word, I think, we've talked about it anyway, several times, but means to be perceptible. Have not been perceived, had not, not become perceptible, not become the object of your vision, of your eyes. Nabhut. This nabhut is the past tense. It's a aorist past, right? Nabhut, bhudatu, and then the endings of the lung, right? So nabhut disham gochara. You did not become perceptible to your vision. In other words, you didn't see. Yuvayor, of you too, right? This is the dual of the Shashti Vibhakti. So Esha Yuvayor Nabhut Drisham Gocharaha. This did not become visible. You didn't see it. In other words, you didn't see this. The two of you never saw. What did you never see? Sandrananda Sudhabdir. Esha Yuvayor. This Sandrananda Sudhabdi. This ocean of nectar. Here again, condensed joy. This ocean of the nectar of condensed joy. So this word, this is like almost Prabodhananda Saraswati language here. Right? So what happens? Iti Uchayir. Nakulanujo, the younger brother of Sahadev. I mean, the younger brother of Nakula, meaning Sahadev. So vilapati, so vilapati means to lament. So he's lamenting. So this is karuna rasa, right? So this is a different kind of karuna rasa. So generally speaking, this is what's very interesting about this particular section and really has to be fleshed out in the commentaries of Priti Sandarbha, because of the distinction between the traditional rasa shastra and the way that Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami are explaining the Rasa Shastra in relationship to Bhakti Rasa. Right? So the big difference is the Gona Rasas, like Karuna, that they don't, what is the Vishaya? So generally speaking, the Vishaya of Karuna Rasa will be the person who has died, right? It's it's shoka, it's grief. So generally speaking, that's the main Karuna Rasa. But Karuna Rasa, in my opinion, that should be expanded to mean anything that is, and that's being proven by this verse here. And here it's being proven in terms of Bhakti Rasa. So the disappointment in the people who don't have a taste for Bhakti Rasa, you feel empathy for them, you feel sympathy for them, you feel compassion for them. That's Karuna Rasa in Bhakti. So here he says, Nakulanujo vilapati preksha pramodakulo govindasya padaravinda yugala prodama kanti chatam. So he says this, he is lamenting in this way after seeing, there you go, there's a nice gerund for you, right? Preksha, so there, having seen, what has he seen? This chatam. So we just had chata over here, right? Chata. So chata means the effulgence. And kanti also means the effulgence. So you could say chata means the rays. So the rays of effulgence, prodama, uddama, prodama, yeah? Very strong here. The very strong rays of light coming out of Govindasya Padaravinda Yugala, coming from the lotus feet of Govinda. And what? Pramod Akulo. So this is Nakulanuja, he's saying this, but he's not saying it, he's vilapati, he's lamenting, but not because he's suffering on their account, but because he's full of joy. Right? He's Akula means overcome by pramoda, overcome by bliss, by pleasure at seeing Krishna's lotus feet. And he's lamenting that, Madri, you never got to see Krishna's lotus feet. Pandu, you never got to see Krishna's lotus feet. You died beforehand. So they died. So normally in Shoka Rasa, in Karuna Rasa, it would be lamenting for them. And so he's lamenting for them, but he's lamenting for them because they didn't get a taste of Krishna Bhakti, because they never got to see Krishna's lotus feet. They never felt that ecstatic joy, that Sandrananda Sudabdi. So we have a couple minutes left now. Excuse me here for going off topic today. What can I say? I'm in the Prabodhananda Saraswati mood today. But here, this is Anandi's Tika, is quite nice here. So here so this Hamsa-duta, so you may know that I translated Hamsa-duta once upon a time. Virājante yasya vraja-śiśu-kula-steya-vikala svayambhū-cūḍāgrair lulita-śikharāḥ pāda-nakharāḥ kṣaṇaṁ ālokya prakaṭa-paramānanda-vivaśaḥ sadevarshir muktanapi tanu-bhṛtaḥ kṣochati vrisham. Right, so now this is what this was hasanti brahmādīṁś, right? So, or brahma-yoga-viduṣas. So he's talking brahma-yoga-viduṣas, but because here he has muktan, right? Sa devarshihi. So he says ateva karuna rase narada shokokti. So Narada's words in grief, in the so that's shoka, karuna rasa. Shoka is the sthāyi bhava. This difference between sthāyi bhava and rasa, this is something that very few people understand, right? Sthāyi bhava is the latent feeling. So latency means it's always present, but it's not always manifest, right? So we all have the potential for grief in us, and that grief sometimes manifests. So, but when it manifests, then it becomes rasa, it becomes karuna rasa. So the latent feelings are awakened by the vibhavas. So the vibhavas, the vibhava in this particular case means bhav is the causative, right? So vibhavyante means that they're produced, they're caused to arise. So they're causes. So then vibhava, another meaning of vibhava is cause. So the karuna rasa, and when the other vibhavas act on the latent mood, the potential of grief, then it becomes karuna rasa. So it has to have these other activations that are there. Otherwise, it's, the shoka, if it's just manifest without without these other elements, then it doesn't really attain the status of karuna rasa. But here now in karuna rasa, in bhakti rasa, so here it says sadevarshir muktan api tanu-bhṛtaḥ shochati brisham. So shochati here is grieving for all those living beings, even ones who are liberated. Brisham here just means very much. He's lamenting greatly for them. And why is it? kṣaṇaṁ yan ālokya prakaṭa-paramānanda-vivaśaḥ. So this is Devarshi, who is vibhasha, who is, overwhelmed by the great ananda, the manifest great ananda. So he suddenly become, this is what's happened to him, right? This has happened to him. So this prakaṭa-paramānanda-vivaśaḥ means that he's experiencing rasa. So he has this basic feeling of this sentiment of pity for the living beings, but that's not always manifest. But sometimes you see a particular situation and that causes it to be manifest, but it's not suffering, right? For the Gaudiya Vaishnava, I'm saying the Gaudiya, but for the Vaishnava, for the devotee, that seeing of a particular situation brings him great joy, but at the same time, he is feeling lamentation for others. So what is it that he saw? So he just saw for a moment, ālokya here, this ālokya is another lyak, Jaran. So upon seeing this, he became overwhelmed, or he became, overwhelmed means that he lost control, vivasha. He lost control of himself a little bit. So he became out of his natural state. So when you taste rasa, then you come outside your natural state. And you prakaṭa-paramānanda, they're experiencing the prakaṭa-paramānanda. It becomes manifest. It becomes tears. It means that the ashta-sattviks start to manifest. So what is it that he saw? Virājante yasya vraja-śiśu-kula-steya-vikala svayambhū-cūḍāgrair lulita-śikharāḥ pāda-nakharāḥ. Okay, so the pāda-nakharāḥ. So nakara means the nails of the toes. So pāda-nakharāḥ. And what is it? Lulita-śikharāḥ. So lulita-śikharāḥ. Lulita means that they're lying down. Lulita, flopping around on the ground. Rolling on the ground, you could say. But what's, or he just lets you say that's, I'm taking the word a little bit too far, but it could mean like that. Lulita, Lola. Lola means, this is Lord Brahma, right? Svayambhū and Cūḍāgrair. So Svayambhū-Cūḍāgrair by the tips of the crowns of Svayambhū. So he has 4 heads, right? So he's got to change heads all the time. He can't have one, he's got just one head goes on Krishna's feet. No, he has to change heads, right? So he's changing heads. And that's why his crown is moving, and the tips of the crowns, the shikhara, is lulita-śikharāḥ is referring to the feet. So they're coming down onto the feet, onto Krishna's, onto the tips of the toes of Krishna's feet. So why is Swayambhū doing that? So this is taking place after the stealing of the cows, right? So vikala, So he's lost his vikala means again sort of like the losing control. And steya-shishukula-steya-vikala, vraja-śiśu-kula-steya. So he's because of stealing the cows and especially the shishu. He doesn't mention cows here. So virājante is a verb is going with the nakaraḥ, right? It's going, so virājante just means, so remember we talked about this word virājante. This is one of these words for to be. But to be in a particular, to be situated there. So anyhow, on seeing how Lord Brahma is bowing down to Krishna's lotus feet, then and praying to Krishna and being so remorseful at seeing Krishna. So this is Lord Brahma. And when Narada Muni sees this scene, then he thinks, so he's not laughing at Brahma. He is feeling joy on seeing this scene. That Lord Brahma, the great Lord Brahma, the creator of heaven and earth, right? He is putting his head down on Krishna's lotus feet, recognizing his glory. And this is who? This is Vraja Krishna. He is recognizing the glory of Vraja Krishna. He's praying, let me take birth as a piece of grass in Vrindavan, so that these boys, these cowherd boys, can step on my head. That's what Lord Brahma is praying here. So this is the 14th chapter of this 12th to 14th chapter of the 10th canto, which is talking about the glories of this story of Lord Brahma, to illustrate that Vraja Krishna is the object of worship of Lord Brahma. That he tested Krishna and came to find that no, this is the summum bonum. This is the ultimate goal of all devotional service. So that's prakaṭa-paramānanda, so that he becomes filled with rasa, but that rasa manifests itself how he thinks, oh, look at this Lord Brahma. This Lord Brahma is so great. And yet the poor bugger, excuse me, the poor fellow had to commit an offense in order to be able to, in order to get the light to understand what happened. And all the living beings, even the liberated souls, they're all committing offenses to Krishna because they don't understand this. They don't understand the glory of the personal form. And especially they don't understand the glory of this Madhura form in Vrindavan. So just like Nakula, Anuja, Sahadeva, he was mentioning. So then he says at the end here, Nanu tarhi evam bhutas Chaitanya bhaktaha kim avagyana karana shilaha. So here you see a nice usage of the word shila, right? Character, and karana means doing, and avagyana. So are the Chaitanya's devotees who are like this, right? Evam bhuta, the way that they've been described. So then are such Chaitanya bhaktas characterized by doing avagya, of simply going around scorning people? Is that the way? Is that what Chaitanya bhaktas are? Note to Chaitanya bhaktas. Are you supposed to go around, if you're a Chaitanya bhakta, are you supposed to do this kind of thing? Is that the way that you're going to go around talking trash talking other people? Neti aha. No, not so. And so in order to say that, Prabodhananda says, suparveḍitāḥ. They suparvabhir devair iditaḥ stutaḥ. They are worshipped by even the gods. So ye tu abhagyana karana shila bhavanti. So those who are people like this, who go around scorning other devotees, would the gods praise them? Stunvanti, notice that stunvanti. that N coming in there, stunvanti. That's a little bit irregular, you know, you have to point these things out. Stoti is the singular present. It's stoti is the third person singular. Stoti. And then stutaha and stunvanti, the plural. Kurvanti. So kurvanti, it's the same as the 8th class. Api tu nindanti. So the gods, if you were to do this avajnana karana, if you were like that, then they would condemn you. So it's karuna, that's what he's saying. It's karuna rasa. So they may laugh at Brahma and so on. And they may not think very highly of the other Vaishnavas. And they may even, you know, scorn the people who are engaged in Brahma yoga. But they do it, the real emotion that's there is karuna. Okay. All right. Well, next week we'll go back to our regular programming. I hope you didn't mind.
Was nice.
Okay, great. This is better than yesterday's class because today I actually read it before I started the class. Yesterday I was, you know, looking around for something to talk about. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Purnam madaha purnam idam purnat purnam udachyate. Purnasya purnam adaya purnam evavashishyate. Sarveshang swastir bhavatu, sarveshang shantir bhavatu, sarveshang purnam bhavatu, sarveshang mangalam bhavatu. Om shanti shanti shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Jai Jai.